Hi, Dale coming to you from my temporary garage again. And in this video, it's actually a follow-up to my last video where I showed you the easiest way to make a 3-finger box joint with no measuring and no marking. I had questions asking exactly what the spacer is actually for and what it actually accomplishes. That was actually pretty hard for me to describe and answer in a comment section with no visuals, so I thought I'd go ahead and make this video and explain all about why it's needed and what you can accomplish by using slightly thinner and slightly thicker spacers. Come on, let's go. First, I want to show you what happens if you don't use the spacer, and then I'll talk about exactly why it's needed and how by just adjusting the spacer just a little bit can produce very different outcomes, one of which may exactly be what you want. Normally, this is where I would take the spacer and put it up here to give that spacing. But for this demonstration, I'm going to leave it alone and I'm just going to make these cuts against the stop block. You see how loose the joint is now? Way too loose to be usable at all. And that's because the width of the blade, called the kerf, was not taken into account when I made the cuts. Let me use exaggerated measurements, and that will help me explain to you exactly what I mean. To better explain, let's say that this black tape roll is the blade. It has a 2-inch width or kerf. I have this stop block clamped down, and I'm going to use my square to scribe a line on these 2 pieces of scrap wood to indicate where the right side of the blade would be. This is the right side of the blade, which is my right, your left. Now I'm going to take 2 pieces of the black tape and I'm going to put them on there as close to that line as I can get it. And that's going to indicate where the blade would be, how much of that wood the blade is taking off. And I'm going to do this on both of them. So this would be the initial cuts that I make on both pieces. Now let's say that this piece here is going to be left with the center finger, which means I have to cut off this portion of the wood, leaving the center finger. For that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to use this blue tape and I'm going to put it over this portion of the wood. This indicates that this piece of the wood would not be here, leaving the center finger. That means on this one, I'm going to be removing this portion of the wood, leaving the outer finger. And so I'll indicate that by putting some more blue tape down on this side. So now what we're looking at is anywhere that you see any remnant of the black or the blue tape, that wood is not going to be there. That's going to be cut off, leaving an outside finger and an inside finger. With this exaggerated kerf of the blade, I hope you can see that once we push these back up flush against the stop block, you can see that for this inside finger, it's going to be starting here, and then from here over, we'll have no wood. From here on the outside finger, this way. This leaves this entire kerf, in this case 2 full inches, where it's going to be a gap. It's just not going to work. But if you shift the piece that has the outside fingers, if you shift those 1 kerf length, it will line up perfectly so that where this one starts, so does this one. And to prove that, we can actually use the kerf, or in this case, the tape. What we can do is we can put this down against the stop block, put this up against it, and I'm just going to hold it down, remove the kerf, put this piece back on and slide it over, and you're going to see it fits up perfect. This is why it works every single time if you have a spacer that is the exact width of your saw blade. By using this same example, you can see that if we needed to shift it a little further out, it's going to make it a tighter fit. Now, it can only get so tight because once this shifts too far over, there is just no way that these joints are going to fit together because you've just got too much wood in the same place. But if it was just a little bit loose, you could slide this out just a little bit and that's going to make it tighter. Just the same on the opposite side. If it was too tight for your needs, you could shift this piece not as far. If you want to exaggerate it way in, this is going to make it a loose fit. If you wanted to just pull it in, so right about here is the perfect fit. If you want to bring it in so you're shifting it a little bit less and make that cut, you'll see that there's a little bit of open wood where it's open to open. That's going to create a looser fit. But just like you can create it too tight, just like I showed when you don't use a spacer, the looser you make it, it gets to a point where the joint is just not usable. So when would you want to use a larger spacer? Well, if your blade is like mine and it's a little bit thicker than the 1/8 inch drill bit, and you have not created a unique to that blade kerf spacer, that's when you're going to need to do it. To get the perfect fit, I would need to shift the piece of wood slightly more than that 1/8 bit, or in this case, the 2-inch kerf. I could do that by simply adding a playing card along with the spacer, sliding that up, or if you really want to dial it in, you can get just a standard piece of paper and slide that up, or maybe even double over the piece of paper just to give a little bit more thickness and use that. You'd be surprised at just the thickness of a playing card or a piece of paper at how dialed in that can get you. If you're not going to make your own exact kerf width spacer and use a setup block or a drill bit, this is exactly what you're going to need to do to dial in that exact spacing for your blade. For me, my blade is just barely wider than the 1/8 inch drill bit. So for me, I was still okay using this or my custom spacer. This created just a little bit looser of a joint, but honestly, once I added glue, there was really no issues at all. I still prefer using this because I know this is dialed into the exact width of my blade, but this really works just as well for me. So now you're asking, what do I do if my blade is just a little thinner than the 1/8 inch drill bit? Well, the way I see it, you have 3 choices. First, you can go down a size on your drill bit. That will probably go down to where the drill bit is now thinner than your kerf on your blade, which is perfect because now you can go back to adding playing cards or sheets of paper to widen that space to get it the exact perfect width that you need. Second, you can still use the 1/8 inch drill bit as I've shown, but for the other piece where you're leaving the center finger, you could shim that one over just a little bit with a playing card or a folded over sheet of piece of paper. Once those cuts are done, remove that spacer and replace the drill bit for the outside finger cuts. You could use this method even if you already had a spacer that gave you that perfect size cut, but maybe you're doing a project where maybe it's like a puzzle that you're doing and you want it to fit together a little bit looser so that there's a little bit more slop. You could do this exact same technique to give yourself a looser fitting joint. The third method, which is the one I like the best, is to make your own kerf spacer. Make one for each one of your blades. That way you always know that you have the perfectly sized spacer that will match the kerf of your blade every time. I hope I did a good job explaining why you have to take that one piece that has the 2 outside fingers and shift it over exactly 1 blade kerf in order to make the easiest, no measure, no marking, 3-finger box joint. I got this idea by using a very similar technique with the drill bit to make the perfect size dado cuts. You can find many videos on how to do that just by doing a simple search. But I looked and looked and I didn't find anyone that used this technique to make a 3-finger joint. and I think it's pretty cool on how easy it is. If you think I earned it, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you like me, you really like me, then hit that bell icon after you subscribe, and that'll give you a notification every time I put up a new video so that you don't miss any. And if you really want to be one of the cool kids, do what they do and share this video. It helps my channel more than you may think it does. Until next time, see ya.